Will I already be on screen? Should I behave myself?
I guess that's up to you, how you feel about it.
I mean, I'm not going to strip or anything, but, it's not that type of live stream.
Right. Alrighty, well, hi, Kyle Wright. Welcome to the Popcorn Space. This is the area for free thought and ideas. Hope you feel free to speak your mind, and we will try our best not to be offensive. How are you doing today, Kyle?
Doing wonderful, man. It's good to be on here. Thank you for inviting me on to such a thing. And I believe this is the second time I've been on your channel. Not necessarily the Popcorn Space, but I think this is the second. Yeah. Is this the second?
I think it's the second or third. I think, we collaborated quite a while ago.
God, we were babies, man. Like, that was so young. We were so young. That's so.
I think that was like 2013, maybe 2012. It was so long ago. There was I remember the way that I found you on YouTube was, I think my friend Cole, who originally started the channel with me, and he's been on the podcast before, but he showed me your videos, and I started watching them. You had those like 5 to 10 minute kind of like YouTube sermon bite things going on.
Yeah.
And we used to watch them, and I thought it was really cool, and I just assumed that you were some guy who like went to my friend Cole's church or something, because I didn't know. And I remember reaching out to you thinking that back when, I think it was over like back when YouTube used to have a messaging thing. I think that's how I reached out to you. And
dude, what a time to be alive in YouTube. We were able to message each other. Like,
I know,
that's
it's so
cool.
crazy they got rid of that, because like that's how we were able to collaborate, which was super cool. And it was like you didn't have to risk any kind of creepy stuff. Like, I didn't have to reach out to you on social media or give you my phone number or anything, because I didn't know who you were.
When you reminded me about the messaging, because I did watch the snippet of your podcast that you had Cole on.
Yeah.
And you were like, you remember when YouTube had messaging? And like, it was like a nostalgia wave hit me. And I was like, wait a minute, there was messaging. Like, why'd they take it away? Like, I don't know. But anyway, so.
Yeah, well, it's crazy how much it's evolved. It's funny looking back on, I think it was the Rooster Teeth podcast I was watching, where they said, we always, like, everyone hates change, but we demand progress. And it's funny because every time they change anything on YouTube, we're always like, oh my God, it's so dumb. Like, this is the worst way you could have it. It was great the way before. We liked the way it was. It was so easy to use. But then over time, when you look back at like what YouTube used to look like when we started, like just how the freaking channels looked, it's like disgusting. It's like, how did anyone ever think that was what a website should look like? But we just thought it was normal, and now it looks so spiffy and fancy. But like in the immediate present, when things change, we can't stand it. So it's funny to realize our mistake, and YouTube actually kind of knowing what they're doing while they're updating their site. I remember in youth group when we used to watch these videos, like because we had like we had the normal youth group, which was like Wednesday nights, and then we'd have like small groups on Sunday nights. And we would watch these videos where they do kind of like they do like sketch type things, like with a narrative, and then in the end, some guy would come and talk and explain it, and he would talk about what happened and relate it to the Bible. And I remember thinking it would be so cool if I did that, and I had like a guest come in and do it. And then I thought, dude, Kyle does videos like that already. And so I reached out to you and was like, it'd be cool if, you wrote some kind of like mini sermon thing like you do and put it at the end of our videos. And I remember, I think we did it just once or twice, but me and Cole were thinking that's the coolest thing. Because when I found out that you were some random guy who lived in Ohio, I was like, dude, we're like YouTube collaborators now. We're like, we're doing it. That was like the thing under like going to VidCon. I felt like a real YouTuber at that moment. Yeah,
dude, that was such a different time for me too, because I don't know if you know this or not, which I'm not going to dig myself too much of a grave. I don't even remember the channels that I was communicating with, if that's what you want to call it. Plainly, I was a Christian asshole in the beginning of YouTube, and this was definitely way before you found me. So this is going to be kind of like a relation for you. But it was. So there was that whole resurgence of like atheism that had happened, and it was kind of like this big, forest fire of atheism, like just started spreading. And I loved Christian apologetics, and I thought that I was this big bad wolf and I was going to take down all these atheists on YouTube. So I made a video. It was like 20 questions for atheists, and it was supposed to pwn them and everything. I referenced like what are they going to do when the rapture happens? Like, dude, like it was laughable. It was so bad. So
that is a revelation for me. That's really interesting to hear.
Oh yeah, dude. I got rid of those videos. Probably, I would say I think I did it for a total of 6 months, and it was stressful, and it was one of those things where like I was thinking like, why are they so mean to me? And then I realized I'm like, well, I'm the one that called them out. I got to stop this. Like I started fights and stuff. So as you know, as you can tell, even from that point to when I was posting all of those ministry videos and such, you know, that obviously it's a much different, you know, source of material than what I was doing even then. And obviously now it's completely changed from that. You know, I mean, like we both have completely changed as people and as content creators and stuff. So it's cool to see how that stuff has happened. But yeah, that's essentially how everything started for me on YouTube, was that I was hell bent, ironically, on you know, challenging, you know, atheists and stuff. And I'm like, I'm super Christian. I can say anything. Ask me any questions about evolution. There's no such thing as albiogenesis or whatever. So, so it was laughable, but yeah.
It's so funny hearing that because, I mean, I don't know. So for anybody listening to the podcast, as far as I am on my faith right now, I don't particularly have a label for it. It sounds super new agey of me to be like, I'm not into labels or whatever, but really, like when I left Christianity initially, I think because I was so used to being in kind of this ideological group with other people that I could say they're on my team, I believe exactly what they believe. The first way that I was able to leave was I jumped straight into the atheist boat. Like I was listening to Christopher Hitchens, and I read The God Delusion, and I kind of would listen to all these videos where atheists would rebuttal videos like apparently the one that you would make, and I would hear these.
Yeah.
It was crazy to me because I had always believed in Christianity, like growing up, and then hearing these people like being such assholes on the side of Christianity, like, damn, man, I didn't realize that all that was going on. And like, even though I was no longer Christian, I was still like, I feel like you're way misrepresenting the group that you represent, or are standing in the place of, which is too bad because I fell for, even though I'd come from Christianity, I still fell for it. Hearing the Christian apologists that were being assholes, that were trying to pretend that they were above these atheists and stuff, it kind of made me like anti-theist for a while, where I was like, you know, screw any ideology. I don't see any reason other than just some kind of tyrannical. Like even last time that I talked to you about it, because we've talked briefly about it. Even last time I talked to you about it, I was very like, screw Christianity kind of thing. I don't want any part of it. But I've come to a much better place, I think a much healthier place, where I totally understand why people get into these systems, and I understand there's like a lot of benefits of it, and I'm not here to call out Christianity or any Christians as some horribly negative thing. But it's funny. It's funny to hear that you made those, because I think of those in such a weird light now, them being like the last remaining pieces of Christianity as I left.
Yeah, it's really interesting too, because I was weirdly comforted when I saw that you had posted that. I can't remember what I don't want to missay what you had said that it was. Essentially, it was, you kind of talked about like your spiritual deconstruction, and like, you know, how you had gotten to the point that you know like essentially had decided like, look, this was for me, this is not really for me anymore. This is why. Yeah. And I was going through my own faith crisis at that point too, and it was actually really, really bad. Like it was very unhealthy. I was not handling you know, my personal life well. Like it really, really did consume me in a sense. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of comforting in a way to know that, you know, a friend of mine that I had not even we have never actually like physically interacted with each other, been to church together, or like gotten anything to eat or anything, and we both went on the same path as far as that. Like, you know, I'm sure our paths were very different on how that happened, but it was one of those things where, like, I know that me personally, I had to take a step back and look at the things that were happening in my life and the questions that I always had but never asked.
Right.
I didn't want to turn. I don't want to turn this into like, a whole like, thing. But my spiritual deconstruction kind of came from the idea of a perfect God creating a creation that he knows for a fact is going to fail.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, that's, to me, it's one of those things when, like, you're creating sentient beings that feel pain, that feel emotion, that all these things, and there's now a disadvantage for those that are born to make that decision. And while everyone has the choice, there's not really, it's, to me, it's I don't want to be pompous about it, but it's like, it seems like it's a very, very unfair thing to be like, okay, we're a science experiment that's been created, it didn't work, but it's still our fault. And It's like, that to me, like, and I try not to be a jackass about it, but in the same hand, it's like, I'm nowhere near the end of my spiritual journey. I'm sure, like, I could very well come at the end of this and be a Christian again.
Right.
I could come at the end of this and be a hardcore atheist, but I had to really sit down and think to myself, okay, why do I believe this? Is this do I believe this because it's what I've always been taught, or do I believe this because I genuinely do?
Mm-hmm.
And I think there was a time that it was very, very genuine, but it's one I kind of liken it to what the comedian Chris Porter says, where he's like, sometimes life just kicks you in the balls enough to where you're like, you know what, close enough. So like, so that's kind of the condensed version of it. There's a lot more to it, but like I said, it was really interesting to see that you and I kind of had like a similar path on that, and it was really interesting. So really cool. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think what's funny is I think there was a time that I reached out to you a while back because I guess you'd call spiritual deconstruction, started like a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, and Wright must have been a couple months before I started like going down that path, that I was trying to show someone your old series Morbid, because I was like having a nostalgia trip and remembering it.
No.
And I couldn't find it.
No, you did. I got rid of that.
Well, you got rid of that, but then I realized you got rid of all your other old videos, and I was like, oh man, like I wanted to like go down memory lane, but they're all gone. So I asked you about it, and you had said that you had this small time where you weren't sure and you kind of were questioning your faith. And I feel like at that time I looked on it, like, because I was still Christian, is like, oh shit, like, oh no, I don't want that to be the case. And then like months later I come back to it and I was like, wow, I somehow ended up in that exact same place. So it's a similar feeling that even though we're people that have never met, we did come from a very similar place and have also wound up in a similar place.
I don't know. I actually haven't really even gone public with mine yet. So this is going to be kind of like a revolutionary thing, like when this comes down. But it has really kind of made me look at life differently. And it's made me think about this, where it's like, okay, so I know for a fact that my time is limited while I'm here. No matter what I believe, we are not here for a long time. It's like, 80 years in the grand scheme of either thousands in a creation scale, or even, more drastically millions on an evolutionary scale, even more, we're a blip. So I try to look at it as like, okay, so if I only have a certain amount of time left, then what do I want to do with it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do I want to handle this? I want to do things I love. I want to do things that, genuinely make me happy. And I don't want to keep it that surface level. It's like, well, happiness is everything. It's like, no, it's not. Happiness is bullshit. Yeah. If you rely on it, you're not going to get it. It's like,
right.
Like that's a Christian principle I still carry over, So it's like, no, joy is important. It's like, that's the most important. But yeah, just, it's made me kind of, look at things a little differently. Me and actually a bunch of friends have kind of gone through the same thing. And, it's been this moment of like, I just need to take care of myself. I need to make sure that I'm making the right decisions for me. And number one, I don't want to be ingenuine, so it's because it kind of likens to that verse that says, if you're not a happy giver, God does not want your money.
Right.
So it's, and that's kind of, where I stood with it. But anyway, so that's kind of the, I don't know, the nutshell, if you will, the big nutshell of the spiritual deconstruction, but of how things went down. But it's been very different. And, getting rid of all those videos, dude, I'm so mad I did. I purged through all of those, and I had like a huge day where I was like, I was having the worst day ever. And like, I'm like, I hate everything. And I hate my YouTube channel. I hate chocolate. I hate this. Like nothing is good anymore. Like, I just like I literally had a Britney Spears meltdown, like shave my head moment.
Dude, I just shaved my head. Like I did the quarantine head shave recently.
Yeah, what's number one is that there are some people that can look good with a shaved head. I shaved my head once, and it will not happen again. So
yeah.
So, but because the thing is now is that I got the beard to compensate it, so I guess I could look like one of those like biker guys or something. But yeah, it's fun. So
yeah, it's quite the thing. A lot of people have been posting a bunch of memes about how it's dumb that all the like a bunch of people are like, if you haven't shaved your head for quarantine, you're doing well. And I'm like, hey man, you know what? I'm the only one with the guts to do it. Forget it, man.
Because some people were like, dude, like you should shave your beard, like due to the whole Corona thing, because it's like, you know, everything gets caught inside your beard. I'm like, yeah, but no one tells a girl to shave her head because she has long hair. I'm like, wash your face and you'll be fine. Like,
yeah, it's just a little more maintenance you got to cover. But so I didn't expect to go so far into the faith thing, but I do think it kind of coincides with the evolution of you as a content creator. So I'm glad that we were able to get into that. But I want to move on.
Me talk about that here too. So I appreciate that.
I was glad. I mean, we haven't even really talked about it much outside of the podcast, so it was good and kind of cathartic to go through it with you. But I do want to ask, I think. So from my experience, you were doing stuff a lot when I started the YouTube channel in 2011 when I was 11 years old. And so we started doing videos together. The first video we did together, and the first time I reached out to you, I must have been like 12, maybe 13. And I remember we were talking on the phone about some project, because we've kind of like shared notes and stuff on projects over the years. And one time we were talking, and we'd known each other for like 2 or 3 years at this point, and I was a freshman in high school, and you had mentioned something to me about it, and I was like, oh yeah, no, I'm just a freshman. And you were like, what? Like, I remember you thinking that I was like way old, because everyone thought I was like 17 or 18, but I was like, no, I'm like 11. Like, I was so much younger, and it was kind of this revelation that we had of our difference in age. But it was funny the different places we were in our lives, and obviously also geographically, that we were able to come together and collaborate. So I think that's the cool thing that I've experienced with YouTube.
Yeah, it's opened up doors, man, because I kind of have another Jackson in a way, because so I found a channel on YouTube, which now he's a really, really good friend of mine. His name is Brent. It's on Brent TV, so I'm giving him a plug here. But he had a kind of like weird way that he found me, because he thought he was talking to another Kyle Wright. And it turns out that it wasn't the one, but he was talking to me. And then it got more confusing because the other one messaged him and he was talking to him about stuff that him and I had talked about. It was a big mess. Yeah. So, it was weird because like it kind of prepped me for like how to, you know, get over that awkward stage you have when like you don't really know anyone, or, you know, it's like, or like, okay, like how do I do this? Like, how do I talk to them? Like, what do I say? Are they cool with profanity? Are they not? Like, are like, you know, are they into this? You know, so, really like getting to collaborate with you kind of opened up a door for me for later things in my life, like whether it was clients that I was working with. I knew how to talk with them because it made me not nervous, because I was talking to somebody from Texas, you know, that I had never physically interacted with before. And it was just one of those things where it's like, okay, so if I'm able to make a Skype call with somebody, like, you know, we're able to be down to earth and kind of like get to the nitty gritty about things. Cause like we've discussed everything from spiritual stuff to film stuff. So it's like, you know, all that, you know, so we kind of had that. So it was one of those things where, you know, moving forward, it allowed me to be able to be comfortable around people that I didn't know, because that was a really big barrier for me for a while. And now I'm way too outgoing and I talk too much. So, but,
no, you're good, man. You're good.
But yeah, so I can't remember where I was going with that, but I'm sure it was something great. But so
I believe you, yeah, probably. What I wanted to ask you is, so we both kind of fell off for a while, and I remember, I mean, maybe I'm way overshooting this, but I think it was like a year or so ago when you came back, and I noticed you had like a pretty significant following, because I remember like way back when we both didn't have like hardly any following at all, and we'd get like tops like 30 to 50 views, and like half of them were us. And I remember you saying at one point,
100,000 views.
You were like, I feel schizophrenic when I'm making these videos on YouTube because I'm like, hey guys, what's going on? It's like, even though I know that probably nobody's going to be on the receiving end of that statement. And so it's funny coming back and seeing you have this like serious following. And I was like, oh, what's going on? So I started looking and I saw you like posting like TikTok compilations and I was like, huh. So I looked and I realized, oh, you like went out and like got really popular on TikTok and like transferred all your fans over here. So you've got like this serious fan base going on. And I was like, freaking good for Kyle. That's awesome. So what I wanted to ask you is how you got into TikTok? Like what inspired you to use that platform?
Well, it's okay. So first and foremost is that what I want to say is that my TikTok may say that I'm quote unquote famous, but I'm like, it really does not feel like it. Like I don't, I actually have only ran into one person that knows me. And that was somebody that locally in town at one of the dollar stores. I was, I think I was down there to buy like toilet paper pre-COVID. And, and I went down there.
That's a thing of the past.
Yeah, dude, I feel so weird every time I go to the store now and I go to buy another pack of Cottonelle because they always look at me like I got 7 heads and I'm like, dude, like we're legit out, like we need some more. So, but I walked down there and she just looked at me and she's like, hey, I have a question. Never met this girl before. She's like, looked like she was maybe solid 18, like fresh out of high school. It's her first job. And she said, she's like, are you on TikTok? And I just. Like, dude, it actually made me really uncomfortable. I was like, oh, yeah, I am. Yeah, I'm on that thing. Yeah. And she said, oh, my God. She's like, I love Bob the Demon. I love your warehouse videos. I love this. I love that. And I finally realized what it's like to be on the other end of that spectrum, which is like it was a big humility moment where I'm like, wow, I'm like, I really hope I've never like fanboyed out to anybody that I was like, I'm your biggest fan.
Yeah.
But
but
no,
man,
being
on the other end of that, yeah.
But no, essentially what happened with TikTok was that one of my really just awesome, just best friends, Luke, he actually was my partner in crime when Vine was still a thing. And we made Vines on there, never got noticed or anything, but we loved everything from like Aaron Doe, Charlie Classic, and like all those, really big Viners. And we were into that. We made our own sketches and we had some fun with it. But Vine obviously got, taken down for whatever reason, the copyright issues and stuff. And years had passed and I got reconnected with that friend and he told me about TikTok. And it kind of looked like it was just meant for like 14-year-olds that wanted to lip sync and show that they're, either, excuse me, like that, like, oh, look at me, I'm cute. Like I want attention. Like that's what it seemed like to me at first. But then I thought about it. I was like, you know what? I'm like, if I'm going to do something on this platform, I want to do something that's different. Like, I don't want to use people's sounds. Like now I've done duets and I've done stuff with people like for fun, but I wanted to just do something that I knew was not going to take a lot of effort and was going to be a lot of fun. And I started this warehouse ghost, thing. Like, it's like I work in this warehouse that's, haunted, and it took the fuck off. It was like the first time I posted a video of me, like, dude, I ended the video with me yelling, thanks a lot, Satan, and people loved it. It was and I checked my phone an hour after I had posted it and I had 1,000 followers. Like it was like that. And I texted my wife and I said, I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm freaking out right now. I actually like had a panic attack because it was kind of like, this is going to keep growing. Because it was like 1,500, 25, 35, 65, 10,000. And it just kept going.
Yeah.
And she was proud of me. She was like, well, this is what you wanted. And I said, well, yeah, but I never thought it was ever actually going to happen. So, man, it started off with just me making just fun videos because where I work, we do have a studio that we use in our old warehouse. So I pretty much have free reign to, film anywhere that I want to in there for work purpose. And I filmed a couple of videos, put them on TikTok, and I got nervous because I didn't know if my employer was going to be happy with me making me throwing shit in the warehouse and yelling profanities and all. And thankfully, dude, I have some of the coolest bosses ever because my one boss actually was planning on hiding noisemakers in the warehouse and trying to scare me. So he's like, "Oh, he's like, no, keep doing your videos, you're good." So,
Just get
which
some
I talk about that in my
genuine reactions on the videos.
yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much how that went, man. And it's been fun too because that opened up the medium to for me to kind of look at it and go, okay, so I have this following on TikTok, which is really, really awesome. And I love the fact that people are into the same thing that I am, because that's essentially what I do with my content. I don't make content that I think is going to make somebody happy. I do very much like what Benjamin Burnley from Breaking Benjamin does is that he writes songs that he loves and that are personal and emotional to him.
Mm-hmm.
And if other people like his music, then they both like the same thing. And I really, really love that. There's something that's like, even if you only have 1,000 fans, you have a connection there. And I love that.
Right.
So yeah, that's just what I did. I just started making videos, of, Bob the Demon. And then, I decided to, make a questions video of let's ask Bob the Demon some questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this whole thing planned, and God bless my wife. She is like my partner in crime when it comes to this stuff. Cause I know when I tell her something, I'm like, hey, I have an idea. If she tells me, yes, that is awesome, I do it. If I tell her something and she says that's the dumbest thing ever, I change it. Like, it's like, I can't put it out, like, unless I know for a fact that she's, got the filter, to let me know that it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I was heavily inspired by Lieutenant Lickme, which I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he is basically like he does trolling on YouTube, and it went from being really, really funny to him using like voice changers of messing with people on PlayStation and Xbox to there's a 45-minute episode where he takes down I'm trying to think of the best thing to not get you demonetized or get you in trouble. Somebody that likes children a little too much.
Yeah.
And dude, this was a 45-minute video of him using a character called the Watcher that basically he knew he got all of this guy's information if it's real.
Mm-hmm.
And basically scared the living hell out of him to never ever make the same mistakes again. And years later, he did an Ask the Watcher episode where the fans got to ask this entity, like, why do you do this? Where do you come from? So I decided after I talked with my wife I'm going to do an EVP session with Bob the Demon. I felt like that sounded like it was going to be a lot of fun. Like I would ask questions and then like I would get 1 or 2, 3 word responses, but it would answer the fans' questions.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really cool, man. It's been a lot of fun. So getting to evolve from, it went from TikTok to, okay, I have a haunted warehouse. Okay, so now that this entity has a name, it's Bob, it's Bob the Demon. And then that evolved into, I love telling scary stories. I love listening to, people like Mr. Nightmare, Mr. Creeps, Corpse Husband, Mr. Creepypasta, like all those guys, they really, really inspired me. So I started taking in scary stories, and the rest is kind of history. So it's been really cool to, just, make content that is fun to make, and then also that it's interactive with the audience, because it's like these are essentially like, besides the Reddit stories that I pulled up, like just when I get, a dry well of, stories that haven't come in. I mean, it's all fan stories. Mm-hmm. That's all stuff that people have sent in. Now, obviously, my wife, my mom, and me and my brother have stories on there too, but those were shared because those were so intense and so scary that I'm like, no one's going to believe this, and that's why it needs to go up there, because it did happen.
Yeah.
So it was really, really cool. So it's like getting to see how the whole reinvented thing happened for my channel. It was really odd. It was kind of a weird road to get there.
You have a very different vibe going on now, but I really dig it. I thought that was a really cool progression to see you do that, because I haven't listened to those scary stories since like high school, but you kind of like reignited my my love for like just listening to like creepy, like really interesting stories. And I just never thought about it, like, because I've like known you for so long and know what your voice sounds like, and you started reading it and it's like, dude, I never thought about it. He's got the perfect voice for this. Like, it sounds really good, because it's not like too weird that it distracts from the story, but it's like it's personal yet ambiguous enough to pass as almost sinister. You know what I mean? That's my best way of describing it. But I thought it was really cool seeing that progression. I have a question that I didn't realize we get to so fast, but I wanted to. I don't know how this question's going to come off, but it's kind of going off of that. But I wrote that you seem to have, and I've noticed this about you throughout our whole like relationship, knowing each other. You seem to have like a true appreciation for the sublime or the darkly beautiful, is what I put. With like horror and heavy metal and stuff like that. And I wanted to ask if you could tell me a little bit about your fascination with that, like, because I really enjoy horror. Much more over the years. I remember you were the first one who introduced me to, well, like really introduced me, because I'd heard of them, but I never really listened to Stone Sour until you like sent me some of their songs, and I was like, whoa, these guys are great. And it started my venturing out into, I think you were the one who suggested way back in the day our Christian horror movie or whatever, The Exorcism of Emily Rose. And I watched it. I remember being like, wow, there's something really kind of darkly beautiful going on here, and it's really cool that you have an appreciation for that, because I feel like a lot of people will hear heavy metal or will see horror movies and be like, this is gross, why are people making stuff like this, why can't they just make happy positive things? And I'm like, there's a beauty to darkness that a lot of people don't appreciate, but I feel like you do.
Yeah, it's because now I'm probably dating myself here because I'm trying to remember, that was a found footage film, right?
Exorcism of Emily Rose? I don't think it was. That was the one where it was like it was almost like a courtroom drama, and it would flash back to.
That's right. That's right. Okay, yeah. Sorry, I've seen so many Exorcism movies that it's like they all kind of meld into another. It's like, what's the one with Linda Blair? Oh, that's right, The Exorcist. So yeah,
quite a few of them.
But yeah, no, it's been something like since I was very, very young, man. I have always loved the horror genre because there's a lot of rules you get to break in horror that you don't get to in other mediums, man. Like it's a lot of fun to everything from obviously I've never been on an actual set, but the thing is that like getting to mess with prosthetics, getting to design the sets, the atmosphere, the tone, like everything about that. It's just fun. Like it is so cool to see all of that and to see, how somebody can be creative with it. And that's one of the reasons why I love horror, because it's such a different genre. It's such a different thing that you can do things with. Now, I think if you want to get into like a psyche kind of aspect of things, that it's like, okay, we obviously are fascinated by violence and we're fascinated by, all these, like, I mean, there you can get, really deep with that, but I'm kind of like a surface level thing. Like I kind of look at horror movies at first kind of like junk food. Like I love a lot of it. I love, being able to snack a lot. I love having a lot of things to look at. But then as my attitude kind of matured, I started to realize the art form that's behind it. And, it's something as simple as so, for instance, I don't know how much of a gamer are you? I don't know if you game a lot or if that's still your thing. 'Cause I know you had like Xbox controllers in your old videos, but I don't know if like if that was you or like your brother or whatever. But
yeah, I go through seasons of like literally not touching video games at all, and then I go through seasons of playing video games every day. Currently, with quarantine in place, I've been playing a lot more than normal, but so I'm not like I'm not like the gamer guy, but I do enjoy video games.
Okay. This kind of like this story will kind of like take everything with that question and kind of answer it for you, because it's the fascination of it. This is just an example, but number one, I am not in communication with this person anymore. Number two, we are not friends. I'm not saying that I gained anything with this because it is a semi-famous person. And number three, I'm not going to gloat too much about anything because it was just a conversation. It was like, holy crap, this actually happened. But with that preface being gone, I'm going to nerd out a little bit. So Mick Gordon is an Australian composer that has done video game music for Doom. He's done it for Wolfenstein. He's done it for Prey, all that stuff. He's a fantastic musician. And I had a fan moment where I sent him a picture of one of my new guitars that I had bought, because he uses 8 and 9 string guitars on the record for the music for
How did you send it to
Doom.
him?
It's for the I sent it to him through the Facebook message to his group that he had, because it was like one of those like public figure pages that's on Facebook, and I wasn't even really sure if it was him. And I just sent him a message, and I just said, at first I was like, hey man, I'm like, I want you to know that your speech that you gave at GDC about, you know, how to essentially be a better artist, like that really inspired me, and I really thank you. I used that for my job. I got to speak at one of the trips I went on to, like a big group of people. It was really cool. And so then he replied back, and he was like, thanks, man, I appreciate it. And it was just the fact that he responded. I was like, oh my God, like Mick Gordon responded to me. This is crazy.
Yeah.
And so it was a couple weeks later, and I bought my 8-string guitar, which is the white one. I don't know if you saw that on Facebook, but it's like, because we're Facebook friends. No, I don't know if anybody else knows that. But yeah, so I sent him a picture of that one, and dude, he fanboyed out. He was like, dude, oh my God, how do you like it? Is it good? Like, does it play well? And I wasn't expecting anything back from him, and it was just kind of like, oh, well, yeah, like, so I talked with him. I tried to end the conversation like 4 times, and he just kept talking. Yeah. Because I didn't want to come off like I was this like weird fan. But the reason I bring this up is because, fanboying aside, later on, him and I were talking about how he wrote his music and why he made the decisions that he did. And he essentially, if I'm hoping I'm saying this right, but the guitar riff that he wrote for one of the songs in particular had 5 single notes that were relative to the 5 points of the pentagram of the satanic star. Wow, and he said, cool. So he's like, he designed his music to be sure that it sounded sinister and it sounded right, because Doom is about killing demons. And it was the fact that much thought went into it, and it was like he understood what he was doing. He wasn't just riffing because it sounded cool. It's like, no, this has like a purpose, like how I'm hitting these notes on this neck. And it was so wild to me to hear that. And that's kind of like when you're talking about like that dark, you know, tone kind of stuff. Like Doom is about as dark as you can get. Like you are literally like ripping demons apart with your bare hands. And it's, you know, trudging through, you know, the, you know, absolute like the barons of hell and all that stuff. Like it's that's a very, very dark, like monolithic structure game. And it is mesmerizingly good, like how they do things with that. And I don't want to get onto like a Doom Eternal rant, but it's just, It kind of like, it just, there's so much more in the horror genre that you can do that, like I said, that you can't do anywhere else. You know, now in the same hand too, I appreciate comedy for a completely different reason. Right. I appreciate drama for a completely different reason. I obviously will always lean more towards horror. Obviously, if you look at the 3 posters, it's like, you know, this is what's in my man cave right now, Stranger Things and It.
This might sound really ignorant, but I think my guess to that is that horror is, at least like historically, fairly unexplored relative to the other kinds of narratives, because a lot of people just really enjoy something that will make them feel good, and they really like positive stuff, and positive stuff is great,
right?
But it's been played to death, and I think we're finally coming in a place with stuff like Blumhouse where they're like, hey, we can make horror movies pretty cheap, so let's just make a ton of them, and eventually we're going to make a good one. Which is a great idea, because I mentioned this in the last podcast, a quote by Jordan Peterson, which is, unless you're willing to be a fool, you can never be a master. And I'm like, that's exactly what Blumhouse is doing. Love that. Is they're like, we just got to make stuff, and we're going to get better. We just got to make stuff, and eventually we're going to figure it out. And they've got some freaking great movies that have come out of there. Because they're not afraid to, like, I mean, they've got some pretty shitty movies as well that people can make fun of all day. And it's like, you can make fun of it, man, but they're learning, and now they're making better horror movies than you could make because they were willing to put themselves out there.
It's so wild to me too, like when people look at you know, a director's you know, repertoire of, you know, different, you know, films that they've made, where it's like, dude, did you see this like really crappy shoot 'em up film they made where it's like, you know, there was him like riding the back of a dinosaur or something in the middle of Manhattan? I'm like, okay, yeah, but did you see that they're fantastic drama that won 3 Emmys? Like, you know, it's like they like, you have to start from somewhere, you know, and it's very interesting. Like, you can see a tonal shift and a difference in directors' movies, you know, and I think a lot of that has to do with the times and, like, you know, the way that, you know, technology evolves and changes and gets better, because I mean Quentin Tarantino's movies are very different when you look at from Reservoir Dogs to something all the way to Once Upon a Time in America or whatever the
in Hollywood,
or what I think that's what it's called. Hollywood, sorry. I watched that movie
which
once
is in
and
America,
so
it still works.
Yes, so yeah, you're a film critic. You don't even know what the name of the movie is. No, but it was really cool to see like how much Tarantino's grown as a director, because it's like I'm convinced he's going to be in his walker still making videos or still making movies.
Yeah.
Like, he'll be back there with his oxygen machine still wanting to, make the next, movie. So I love that, man. It's getting to see the way things evolve. And, horror there's so much to tap into. And I do think that there is a line that I draw when it comes to horror, and I'm not even going to mention films on this because it's one of those things where it's like people that say that oh well don't look this up, people are going to look it up.
Yeah.
But there is a line, and it's like if you look up like the top 10 most disturbing films of all time, there are some people out there that should not be given creative liberty to make films because it's like it's just. There's stuff out there that is just too bad. Like you're like oh no it's a satire of government and everything. It's like no, like you've completely gone past that now. So like but I think it's interesting.
I think you're missing out when you try to go overboard with the gross out because I get it to an extent, but what a lot of horror movies I think have taught filmmakers is that your audience's imagination is going to be the greater writer than you will ever be. So the more that you leave unsaid, that's where the true horror lies.
Yeah, dude, that's what made Jaws so scary, man. Like it's like the fact that the fact that Mechanical Shark did not work is what made that movie great. And it's like the fact that they I can't remember if it was Spielberg or whoever said it, but they said that at the screening for like the very first like opening night of Jaws, they said that after the first scene was done, of the girl being eaten by Bruce the shark, that somebody got up and ran to the bathroom and threw up because it was such a disturbing real thing. Like, I mean, number one, she did a fantastic job at like acting that. I think she broke 3 ribs while she was doing it or something, but. It's just like think about that. They had some
weird
worried on
device
set
under the water they were talking about that would kind of because she was like yanked back and forth or whatever, and they had to do that freaking take so many times, but it's crazy.
Dude, and I think
really
that
good,
what
though.
freaked me out about it too. Oh no. It looked fantastic, and because like when you think about what a shark attack looks like, it's like dude, like it's thrashing, it's water moving, it's screaming, it's that gargle noise that happens because you can't breathe, like and then you're dead,
right?
And it's like, and they did such a great job of doing it, like a little bit like too much of a good job at it apparently for that person, but it's so wild to me, like it's being able to see how. Movies in like the 70s and 80s, they worked with what they had and they did such an amazing job with it. It blows my mind. It's kind of that idea. I mean, ironically, that Jurassic, I wasn't even trying to do that, but like Jurassic Park looks better than 90% of like the CGI that's out today. It's like, and that was made in 93. It's wild, but that's a whole different topic. But so
yeah,
but yeah, it's cool to me, man. It's getting to just getting to be a part of like a horror genre and doing stuff with it. Like it's, I've got ideas for Bob the Demon that I know for a fact some people are not going to be happy with that I'm going to go to eventually, but I know some people are going to go, I get it.
So now are you keeping
his
videos on TikTok? Like you're still active on TikTok? You haven't completely moved to YouTube?
Oh no, I'm gonna keep doing both. I stopped posting on both for a while just due to Corona. Like I had a lot of stuff on my plate, and I actually had to bring all of my equipment home, and I made 75 videos while I was home. Wow. So that was it was now 2 weeks. So I mean, you think about like 8 videos a day or whatever, but we went through a complete rebranding. So it was one of those things where I made all of these videos and. Doom Eternal came out, so I had I pretty much 100%ed that and worked, and that's pretty much all I did. So
yeah,
but no, it's both platforms are going to stay alive because I like the idea of having this 3-dimensional look to the content that I create, where some people can watch just the TikToks and and enjoy them. Some people can just watch the YouTube videos and just enjoy those. However, when you have both of them, you get a view of this story that's very, very different. And I say story loosely because it's not a complete, the narrative's not done yet, and I haven't figured everything out yet. But it's just interesting because some people are like, dude, why didn't you grab the Bible from shelf 12 that you said that was there in the TikTok? And I'm like, nah. I explained that because in my YouTube video I tried to look for it and it was gone.
Yeah.
So it's it's this idea where you don't necessarily have to watch both, but it helps if you do.
Yeah, it gives you a few different angles on the same thing. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's kind of like Stone Sour did the same thing with House of Gold and Bones. They had their album and then they had their graphic novel that went along with it, and it's getting to listen to that while you read I've always loved that. So I kind of in a way took that mentality and applied it in my own way to the content I'm making now. So it was really cool.
I want to tell you something funny. I don't know if you know about this band, but when I first started listening to Stone Sour and my dad heard me listening to them, my dad and I love my dad to death, but he was like, they're good. I know another band like them that you should listen to. And I was like, yeah. So he showed me this Christian heavy metal group from like the 80s or something. And they're called, what is their name? Their name is Vengeance Rising. And their hit single about Jesus was called their hit single about Jesus was called Human Sacrifice, and it's like super, super heavy metal, and they're like growling the whole time, but they're like quoting scripture. It's like the funniest thing ever, because like you can't listen to it without be like, I don't know, it's just funny. I've seen there's a couple different videos by this guy who I kind of have mixed feelings about, but he can be funny sometimes. He calls himself the Thinking Atheist, and he's got a YouTube channel because he grew up in Christianity, and he's like 40-something now, and he only left a few years ago, like about a decade ago.
Oh, wow. Right.
And so he did like this whole presentation where he showed like how Christianity has tried to make their own like marketing bubble, where it's like, hey, if you like rock, hey, we got Christian rock. You don't have to listen to normal rock. Hey, if you like, you have like movies, we got Christian movies. Hey, if you like, we've got every single thing. So Vengeance Rising was one of those things. It's like, hey, you like metal, heavy metal? That's cool. We got Christian metal. You don't have to worry about the other stuff. We've already got that over here. Like, we've got everything you need. And I thought that was so funny. Like, they'll go to every length to make sure you're using their stuff, kind of.
Yeah, and it's, I don't know, man, like a part of me looks at it and it does make me cringe because it's like I'm trying not to be that asshole, but it's like the second that you throw like this is a Christian movie, this is a Christian, like what you were saying, besides some select few things, that's really not great. Like, and it's so unfortunate because like you look at bands like Skillet, Red, Decipher Down, like all those like kind of like titans of that time that tour with Theory of a Dead Man, they tour with Stone Sour, they tour with those bands. It's like they're able to keep up because all they do is write music. They just happen to be faith based. And when you look at I don't know if I can't remember what the company even is. The company that made Courageous, but I can't remember what church it is. But like, they do a good job of making a movie. The problem is that they're writing too much that they like it's in a Christian world. Like they added some details here and there where it's like, oh no, it's edgy and it's real, and it's like, no, it's not. It just isn't.
I think Jordan Peterson has a great line about that. He's not talking about Christian movies per se, but I think he was talking about some of the particular newer Disney movies where they kind of manipulate art and they turn it into propaganda. And he says the way you can tell that is art kind of flows to its own rhythm, something that is more abstract that we can't really understand. So a lot of artists will make their art and they're like, I don't know exactly what this is about, but I know how to, like, it's like Michelangelo. He's like, he wouldn't say that he created a sculpture. He's like, I found the sculpture within the rock. It was already there and I found it.
Yes.
He didn't manipulate it to his own will. He didn't say, this is what I'm going to make, and then manipulate the rock to be what he wanted. And Jordan Peterson said, when you do manipulate it, it looks kind of warped, and you can sense that it feels, something about it feels off. And I feel like that's what's going on with the Christian movies. You're like, you can tell this isn't art because art flows free and this does not. This feels very twisted.
Yeah, and I don't understand where, and I guess there's just no other way to say it. I don't understand where the talent gets lost because, you look at like Frank Peretti, you look at Ted Decker, these are fantastic writers, and they write Christian horror books that are very symbolistic of, biblical nature and everything like that. And you look at like a story like I think it was Frank Peretti's story called House, where this is a Christian writer, and literally it's a group of people trapped in a house with a list of rules that's been left on a coffee can. And the first rule says, Rule 1, God came into my house and I killed him. And it's like, second rule, anybody who comes into my house, I will kill them like I killed God. And then thirdly, it says, give me a dead body by morning and I might let Rule 2 slide. Like, that to me, that's a very interesting thing, because it's like, okay, so this is a Christian writer. This is the serial killer and or the thing that he has created. I want to know more about this because it doesn't look like he's trying to create a world that's comfortable. It's like, this is what it is. Deal with it. And like that's what a movie should be. It's like you're thrown into a situation where the way a story just works in general is that there's a problem, where's the solution? And it's like that's how everything goes. And sometimes you don't get one. Sometimes you get Infinity War and Thanos wins. Spoiler warning. But it's like but yeah, I know. I'm sorry, you've had 5 years, get with it. So or whatever it is. I don't know how long it's been. But no, it's just that to me, like I feel like they're trying too hard to convert people that they forget how to make a good movie. And that's where, but I think that's it's not just, the Christians' fault. It's, you look at, movies that are made today that have nothing but agendas attached to them. To where it's like,
Christians are not the only ones guilty of this. There's certainly a lot of Hollywood movies that will come out with some kind of political agenda that they're trying to get across. And it's like, man, like, doesn't matter if you're right or wrong in your political agenda. This is not where it belongs. You're warping art to say something that you could say in a different format, basically.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate too, because because I think that one of the things that freaked me out the most, and by that I mean like why would you do that, is I love The Amazing Spider-Man 2, but it is way too much a movie that tried to set up the Sinister Six and it forgot how to tell a story. Because it's like they focus too much on like, okay, so all of a sudden here's like all these villains and all these things, and it's like, okay, but we just got over Gwen Stacy's death. Like, can we have a minute to breathe?
Yeah.
So it's a really interesting thing, and it's that's one of the reasons why I did not enjoy Batman versus Superman, because it was too much of like, we're setting up the Justice League. It's like, how about you make a versus movie and nail it?
Yeah.
And then do an end credits. Like that's like I mean, you can do pretty much fill in the blank with any movie that or any company or whatever that has handled that, but it's this idea of that, look, make new things, like, be a Christopher Nolan and make something like Inception, which is just a really good idea. Like, it was like this idea of dreams, like, contain yourself to one film. Even the movie that Christy and I actually watched recently was The Invisible Man. And that is not a movie that's connected to anything else. It's a standalone, fantastic horror film. And I remember thinking to myself after it was done, I'm like, I don't need to think about this movie being franchised. I'm like Lee Winnell, who wrote Saw, directed and wrote this movie, and he did a fantastic job. So it's
he's the guy who played the
what
photographer in Saw, right?
Yeah, Adam. Yep. Yeah,
okay.
He had the iconic line of, I woke up and I went back to my shithole apartment and woke up in an actual shithole.
Yeah.
So, but yes, it's so interesting, man. I love art, but I hate when people ruin it. It's like when it's like, I have something I want to say. It's like, cool, have something to say, but make art.
Right.
Make something really, really good. Like people just get lost on that, and I think that's the main problem, with, Christian culture, is that they try too hard to not take risks. It's one of the reasons why I tried to make Morbid, and I say tried because it was not successful. So
I remember at the time really liking Morbid. I remember the ending was a little messy, but I remember the first episode coming out, and like being blown away, probably mostly because just the quality of it, because we'd been making videos with like really cheap cameras and seeing some like really cool, good production coming out from someone I knew. That was like so cool.
Honestly, man, okay, for anybody that doesn't know what we're talking about, just in case, was that I made it was a group effort movie that me and 2 or 3 other friends wrote, and it was called Morbid, and it was a found footage film. And essentially we were trying to create a Christian horror film, essentially. And that was kind of the opposite problem. That movie just became a bunch of fucks and hate. Like, that's pretty much all it became. Like, It was just, like, there was no real plot anymore. Like, we had a story, we had all this stuff, and the plot really didn't start to happen until episode 4.
Yeah.
And we were already, like, half done, at that point. But, I do appreciate that, though. Like, I never looked at that as like high quality. I just looked at it like, God, I just want this to be over, because it was supposed to be like a 3-week shoot and it lasted a year and a half. It was so horrible.
Well, I know a lot of people like this film, and you might be one of them. So I don't know how you're going to take this, but I think Morbid was miles ahead of the Blair Witch Project, which so many people like. I don't know if you're one of them. I do not like the Blair Witch Project.
Really? What?
I like a lot of found footage horror.
That's crazy.
But I can't. The Blair Witch Project just seemed like it seemed like they kind of knew what they wanted to do with it, and they like went out into the woods with a camera, and they were like, "This is the general idea." And it felt like when I was a kid, like how I first started making YouTube videos is me and Cole would grab a camera, we'd have a general idea of what was going to go on, and every time towards the end we'd be like, "We don't really know how to end this," and it would always be apparent. You'd be like, the hell was that ending? And it's like, that's what the Blair Witch Project felt like to me, because I'm trying to hold on the whole time, and I had so much faith in it because I'd heard so many good things about it. I'm like, no, they're going to pull it together. Like, this is going to be good. Like, it's going to be okay. And then it ended, and I was like,
right,
what just happened? So,
dude,
maybe I'm just too critical, and it is great, but I cannot handle that movie.
Okay, so in response to that, I have 2 questions. The first one is, have you seen not the reboot, but I think it's like supposed to be the sequel. It's a loosely based sequel. It's just called Blair Witch. It's the newest found footage film that came out.
I know what you're talking about. I haven't seen it. I think it came out like 4 or 5 years ago or something like that. But no, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's actually worth a watch. It's imagine everything you know about the original Blair Witch and then crank it to 1,000. Like, it turns into like a genuine horror film. Like, there was actually a couple of points, because I'm extremely claustrophobic, so there was a couple of spots that some people were trapped like underground in these small tunnels. And they have like these cameras on their heads, and it's like, it was done to be very, very effective. Once again, the ending was kind of like, really? This is where we what we end with? Which I mean, like, when you go to a found footage film, it's like, it's kind of like, what do you expect? But
yeah, there are it's a significant. I guess now that I think about it, there are a significant number of horror movies that I'm like, it was really good, and they just didn't know a way to tie it up at the end.
Right. My second question is, I almost forgot it, but I got it back. So my second question is that when it comes to found footage, like, why do you think that Blair Witch didn't work for you? Because you're not wrong. Like, I love certain moments out of the original film. I think that it would have been better had I thought it was real.
Yeah, because that is definitely something I had to take into account, was that the people I was watching it with were huge. They were my cousins who were huge fans of it, and they were talking it up to me, and they were explaining it to me, is that at the time it was the internet when it first came out, and they had posted all these websites about it, so a bunch of people thought that it was actual found footage, which I believe it was it sparked the genre of found footage, correct?
It did. From what I understand, I think there may have been some people that attempted it prior to that, but this was the very first time that somebody had no, because like I want to say, like, this is just for sake of argument, but I want to say they had a budget of about $30,000 and made something crazy like $100 million. Like it was super successful, and it's why they've tried to make a sequel and it just didn't work. That's the whole idea of like, leave it alone, just let it be its own thing, right. Like, let it do its thing. But yeah, it's I was super young when it came out, so I can't really speak too much on it, like on like it really being scary. I think that Ironically, I actually kind of enjoy the ending because that's one of those did you pay attention to the beginning kind of a things where it's like, do you like this doesn't make any sense. Like, why is he staring at the wall and the camera just fell and now it's black? It's like, well, no, the people from the town said that the witch would punish the children by putting them in the corner, and then she would kill the rest of them and kill the one looking in the corner last. So it's like when they went into the basement, she found the fellow filmmaker that she was last surviving with in the basement in the pitch black staring into the corner of the wall, and then I think his name was like Jason or something. She's like, Jason, what's wrong? And then she gets hit in the back of the head and the camera falls. So, and that's essentially the ending. So if you either didn't catch it or pay attention to the beginning, that ending will seem kind of weak, but in the same hand you're like, no, like they're dead. Like this is over. They're like that's why the tape stopped essentially. But I
don't remember if I caught that or not.
It's interesting
because it was like 5 or 6 years ago that I watched it. But
so you actually watched that pretty recently,
huh? Yeah, well, I mean,
so you actually watched that pretty recently.
Yeah, fairly recent, 5 or 6 years ago recently, but because I think it came out in like 99 or something, which is the year I was born, so I couldn't really watch it then.
Hold on. You were born in 99?
Yeah, I'm 20 years old, man.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
Which was a good year for movies, though, because The Matrix came out then. It's pretty dang good, man.
Oh, God, The Matrix. Dude, I remember the first time I watched The Matrix, dude, it turned my world upside down. I was like, dude, I don't know what I believe anymore. So that was almost my first step into spiritual deconstruction, but that didn't happen until later.
No, seriously. So. Well, that's the thing is I use that a lot when people talk to me about it. Not that I'm out there trying to convert everyone, because I honestly don't care if anyone... it's funny because as a Christian, I was the exact opposite, because you think all your friends are going to go to hell if they don't believe in Christianity. So it's really, really urgent. Yeah. You're like, no, this is not about us being friends. This is about your eternal punishment or not. I need you to be on my side. But as not being a Christian, I'm not so worried about it. I'm like, you can be a Christian, and I don't really see an issue with that. So I'm not like trying to convert anybody or get them on my side. But I have talked to some people who have like had doubts, and some of them have stayed in Christianity, and some of them have found their way out of it. But pretty much every time I get a question like, it's scary when you leave, because it's like, it's ironically, I'm using a biblical reference, but it's kind of like when Moses got the Jews or the Israelites out of Egypt. They were like lost in the wilderness for 40 years. They didn't get out of slavery and then find the promised land. They were in the freaking wilderness, just wandering around for 40 years, which is a long fucking time, man, to be in the middle of nowhere. And so when people, leave an ideology like Christianity, they're like, I feel like I don't know what's going on. It's like, yeah, that makes perfect sense, because you don't just walk away and then find the answer. You realize how, how little you know, and it's very humbling. And it reminds me of the line I always quote from The Matrix when they woke him up, and he's like, why do my eyes hurt so bad? And he's like, because you've never used them before. And I was like, what a freaking brilliant line.
Dude, it's so good. It is so good.
Yeah, it's so intentional. It's just like, and it's funny because it almost like parades itself as some shallow action popcorn movie kind of thing with all the like fight sequences and stuff, and you're like, no, this is like really, really deep. There's some serious levels to this film. That's what I love so much about it.
Yeah. Now it's I do have a question for you. It is kind of random. I know this is like question time for you, but I do have something for you, and it relates to the spiritual deconstruction thing. Is that I've not been able to sit down and watch Rhett and Link talk about their spiritual deconstruction and like how they went through it. It's something I often intend to, but they did an episode where it said essentially the title was "Are You Afraid of Hell?" Like, are you afraid of the idea of that place existing and you going there afterwards? Is that something that you have wrestled with at all? Like, it's like when you're when you have your time to yourself and you think about it, because I mean that goes hand in hand with like everything we've been taught our entire lives, is that if you don't believe this, you will go to, like, if you do not have Christ covering your sins when you stand before the Father, you will go to hell.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it's like has that, like, I don't mean to like make that thought.
Oh no, yeah,
mind,
no,
but,
I'm
like,
I'm totally up for talking about it. It's kind of just
I'm just curious like how you think about that.
Yeah, it's just kind of a complex answer, which is towards the beginning. Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the thing about it. But I had to come to the place where, because I was raised in a bunch of different denominations. Like, I started off as a little kid, I went to a Church of Christ, which they're pretty strict typically. And then
I'm so sorry.
yeah, as I got older, I went to a Southern Baptist church. But it was this one in town. I mean, everyone in town kind of understands this, but obviously you wouldn't because you're not from here. It's our version of a mega church, because it's fairly big, but it's nowhere near like mega churches in, like, Dallas or something. But the preacher who's been there for a long time, he graduated from ACU, which is a Christian or a Church of Christ private school. So he was very Church of Christ. And then all of the elders, or a lot of the elders, came from very charismatic places. And it was originally the Southern Baptist Church. So it's kind of evolved into this very interesting collection of ideas as this this like new agey what is the word, non-denominational church now. And
which you're just a Baptist with a cool website. That's all that is.
Right.
So
I spent a lot of time there. And then when I moved at like middle school or something to a much smaller town, and I was in a very small town Methodist church, which was pretty damn Catholic as far as Methodist churches go. So it wasn't a Catholic church, but it was a stone's throw away. And so I've had a very different ideas. I mean, I've been with a lot of Christians in my life who were full-fledged Christians who just didn't believe in hell. They thought if you weren't a Christian and you died, you just died, and that's what hell was. It was ceasing to exist, like nothing.
Interesting.
And so I think since I kind of came to a similar conclusion, because a lot of people that had been around me thought that, I kind of banked on that for a minute while I was venturing out, that it's like, if I die and I don't believe in God, it's just like what I already think is the case, which is that, so there's no like aha moment, you know what I mean, where I'll be like, or where I'll be conscious to be like, fuck, I screwed it up. But of course, as a little kid, it's that idea that you can take the boy out of the woods, but you can't really take the woods out of the boy. So I was kind of this kind of very deep part of me was scared of hell for a minute. And I had to come to, of course, I can't know what I would do in the case that I'm wrong. But I would like to believe, once I kind of stared Christianity, like just naked Christianity with no fluff, once I stared it in the face, I feel like I saw a very misunderstanding God that I couldn't be on board with anymore. And I felt like it was the moral choice, because I did fall away at first from like a like historical point of view. Like, I started reading more about the Bible and realizing where that was coming from. And so it was kind of a more like logical arguments, like, hey, people trying to disprove the Bible, me being like, wow, I knew much less about the Bible than I thought I did. But then it came to a more moral issue that at this point, if someone proved Christianity to me, I still don't know that I would be able to be on board with it, because I would like to think that if I showed up to the pearly gates or whatever, and God's right there, it was just like, hey, lucky you got saved at that one point, kind of because that was the culture you were raised in, and even so, you were raised in that culture, and you still had so many doubts. So, like, I'm like, can't imagine people who aren't in that same kind of environment. Right. You get to come in because you got lucky. Knowing that all of these other people wouldn't be as lucky as me, and getting eternal punishment for something that, let's be honest, is not a clear choice. Like, people go like, the Spirit speaks to you. And I'm like, yeah, if that's the case, it's vague as hell. Like it's not like an actual audible voice comes, God appears to you in human form,
right?
And you can make a clear decision. Oh, God's obviously real. It's like some weird game, and then also you get, say 5 to 80 years to make this decision. And if you don't do it right, you get punished for all of eternity. That's not justified. That's not an equal punishment for the thing.
Dude, I started a lot. I never try to be too graphic with anything, but what kind of set me on the trajectory to kind of still have that fear, but in the same hand, because I'm like I said, I'm still at a very different place. I'm working through a lot, and I'm it's like that's a lot of nights of me, still semi praying and being like, okay, like, are you planning on trying to like show me something here? Like it's like I've had my moments where it's like I want this again, or I have moments where it's like, dude, just stay the hell away from me. Like it's like I don't want this, it's like, or like there's nothing there. Like I kind of cycled through those three things, and what kind of set me to be in this moment of like, God, like I don't know if I can do either. Like I don't know what I want to do. Is there is a scene from the movie Saw 5, which I'm not going to bog you down with everything, but essentially what it is that there is a character that essentially gets crushed to death between two walls. And it is not quick. It is slow. It is grueling. It is horrible to watch. And this is a character that you grow to like very much throughout the series. And it's like devastating that not only are they dead, but it's how they die. And it's horrible. And I've not watched that movie since like probably the third or fourth time that I've watched it. Like from when I first like had my spurt of like, oh my God, I got to watch all these Saw movies. And then I was let down by the seventh one, but that's a whole different conversation. But
and then they got the eighth one.
Yeah, so now actually I have a different opinion on that one, but I think Chris Rock is doing something wonderful because he's not claiming to take over the series. He says it's from the book of Saw, so it's kind of like, ooh, a chapter. I'm all right with it. So, like we'll see what happens. But, because you have like, these comedians like Jordan, I think it's Jordan Peele that did Get Out. And like, there's these comedians that are coming out of the woodwork that are writing fantastic horror. So like I actually have some pretty high hopes for that Saw film. But, it was like watching that scene is so disturbing, and it is the idea of him being inside of these two walls and literally being this close, and his arms finally give and break, and the rest of him just gets squished. And I thought about that for a while, and it's like, I know it's so dumb. It's a movie. It's it's horror. It's this, but it's like hell's going to be worse. If hell exists, that like that is a flea bite. You cannot even comprehend what it's going to be like, just like in the same way you can't comprehend how good heaven would be. And I kind of had this moment of, I'm like, so you're telling me that, like I said before, that a God that knows everything literally created sentient beings with emotion, pain, or has the ability to feel emotion, to feel physical things, and literally to the point that some people actually lose their minds and go insane from dealing with things. And you have people that are hurting that want a way out. And by the way, when you found your way out, you didn't believe in me. So now you get to suffer even more from you thought it was bad before. That's the issue I have. That's kind of like what kind of put me away from it, is that you either go with like a reformed ideology of that, God does choose everyone who like that he wants, and he has chosen who he doesn't. Then it's like, well, then why did you create creation just to reject half of it or 90% of it?
Yeah.
To like for them to suffer, or then you also say, well, it's up to them to choose. And it's like, okay, but you knew this would fail. And you're still letting it go, and you yourself said you regretted making humanity. So it's like there's a lot of stuff that I have a really, really hard time trying to swallow with that. And it's one of those things where I've not had a complete comfort moment. Like I've actually like had times I've woken up in like cold sweats, and I've like been like, oh my God, like what's gonna happen to me? Like is this is this gonna be is this how this is going to be for the rest of my life? Am I going to have peace with this? Am I finally going to come to a point with that? But it's this is why I like having these conversations, because it's nice to know that it's, that I'm not crazy. I'm not, just the only person, that went from being one of the most diehard Christians that you could ever meet and would pray for you and could quote scripture to you, which, by the way, I still can do. And that's the really ironic part, is I still have all the knowledge from, when I studied all of it. But getting to look at it now, I've been able to still help people that are going through stuff when they're like, dude, like, I don't know about, this, and this, like, how do I feel about this? And I said, look, I'm like, this is what I can tell you Ephesians says. I'm like, if you're going to take the Bible as truth, this is what it says.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you take that with what it is.
That's the thing.
It's kind of weird how it's evolved.
I still think of the Bible as a beautiful book. If not, ironically, I might think of it as more beautiful than I ever did when I was a Christian. Do you know who Jordan Peterson is?
The name sounds so familiar, and I'm blanking on it.
Yeah, he's kind of slowly gotten more and more popular, but he is classically he's a clinical psychologist, but he was a professor for a while, and he started uploading all his lectures. So he's kind of become like and he's written a bunch of books, so he's kind of become this like wise speaker who does all these different lecture series and stuff. But he's got a series on YouTube that I would recommend to you and anybody else kind of struggling with this stuff, which is, you just look up Jordan Peterson Biblical Series, and it's a long-ass thing, because he's got something like, I want to say maybe 10 to 20 lectures, and they're like hour to hour and a half long lectures on there, just over Genesis. And he dives really deep, using mainly, he's a very, very heavily influenced by Carl Jung, who was a student of Sigmund Freud's, like towards the beginning of psychology, and he was a very kind of mystical guy, and he believed much in the power of narrative and what it does for us, and how like true art speaks more profoundly but more accurately to the nature of reality than our words could ever do. And that's why stories are important. That's why we're so drawn to them, because these archetypes tell us stuff about ourselves that we could never articulate.
Yeah,
and so he goes.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
I love that.
He goes through the Bible
so awesome.
Like that. So he takes the story, and he doesn't say, "I'm telling you." He doesn't say like, "I'm not telling you this is real or fake." I'm not dealing with that. I'm dealing with this as a narrative, and I'm going to deconstruct it in this kind of Jungian way, as archetypes. Yeah. And that is how I believe, how Jordan Peterson believes, and how I believe, or as far as I understand it. And it's how I believe the Bible was intended to be read, because that's kind of what led me astray from Christianity. The very first thing was I started listening to that and talking to. I worked at a Christian company. I worked for a Christian production company, and we did all these like Christian videos and Christian podcasts. And I started talking. I would have like religious conversations with my boss and with a couple of my other fellow like coworkers. And one time I was talking to him about the story of Adam and Eve, because Jordan Peterson had talked about it, and I was talking about how I had heard things about it maybe being a metaphorical story. Like it's not a historical event that's documented, but it's more of a metaphorical story to explain the nature of how humanity began. So it's like a more accurate way of explaining it by being less historically accurate, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing too, because it's the I personally look at creation and evolution both as they're both whacked, like on the idea of like just, as far as in the idea of believing it, of like, they're both outlandish concepts, where it's, because some people would say, well, it's like if God performs miracles, then it's like, why aren't people with like missing limbs like growing them back? Whereas there was a creation scientist that made an argument against evolution that there was I believe it was a snake that has a certain type of basically bacteria that lives inside of its digestive tract, and they're both codependent on each other to live. So he said, okay, cool. So if evolution's true, which one evolved first? Well, and it's like it's a very stumping question. So it's like you can look at both sides of it and just be like, look, it's like there's like, this is interesting. It's like that's where like conversations happen, where it's like I want to understand. It's like show me. So
yeah. But, when I was in Christianity and as I was leaving, I became very fascinated by a lot of that, and I did go through a huge phase of being the fact guy. Like I read a lot of Bart Ehrman. I don't know if you know who that is, but he's a biblical scholar who
heard the name, but never actually read it.
He isn't a Christian, but he was, and he lost his faith while learning more about the historical accuracy of the Bible. And so I read a lot of his books, and I could go to task with Christians who wanted to be like, evolution's false, and I could be like, no, and here's why. And I could tell them everything. I could tell them why the Bible isn't accurate, and how many manuscripts we have, and what isn't. Like, I knew all the little things I needed to know to be a well-read atheist or whatever. But I've become so much less interested in that because everyone talks about how the universe began. You've got the religious and the non-religious trying to explain it. And I'm like, man, there is so much beauty and wonder in the world right now that it seems almost a crime to get stuck talking about billions or, if you're a creationist, thousands of years ago. It's like, dude, you're missing what's right in front of you. Like if it's like what a lot of people do now is when you're watching a movie and you're on your phone, look at stuff that people are doing somewhere else. I'm like, dude, there's something right in front of you that is beautiful and articulated and just full of awe, and you're missing it. You're missing it because you're caught up in all these hypotheticals and you're not focusing on what's happening right now.
Yeah, it's I get caught in that so easy, man. It's so easy to get focused on the wrong thing, and then it's like, dude, it's like I missed the past 5 years of my life. Like, where did it go? Mm-hmm. I didn't take time to enjoy anything, and I think that's kind of the mentality I had with ministry and with everything, was that, number one, everybody that I worked with that was a mentor to me in ministry, I am still friends with to this day. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I've never really come out with it public, so I guess this is kind of the breakthrough for me on on that. So once again, I thank you for letting me do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you feel comfortable doing that.
Well, to be honest, I'm not, but I think that there is obviously I am comfortable with it to talk about it, but in the same hand, it's one of those things where I've avoided it. I've avoided, being public with it. I mean, I've talked to my, obviously my wife and, my brother and, some family members about it, but, it's just, dude, like, ministry is so grueling. Mm-hmm. It is, some of the most, frustrating, sad, emotional, triumphant, and just degrading times I have been that I have been involved with have been when I was involved in church. Mm-hmm. It is, dude. There is. Some people would say that that's an argument to say, well, yeah, that's because the enemy is working. It's like, I think there is an argument for that, but in the same hand too, is that people just suck. Yeah. It's like, and that's, it's so unfortunate, that's the stigma that's passed with it, because I think I noticed it more when I got older. And as I started to interact with people and, especially the church that I was involved with, we were very, very much about helping addicts, mm-hmm. which is a great thing. Like, I think no matter whether or not you have faith or not, like, there needs to be, a cause for that to help people that are, dealing with that stuff. But it kind of came to a point that I got tired. Mm-hmm. I was so tired, and I was emotionally drained. I was done. Like, I had so much going on in my personal life that I was just done with. So I was ready to move on. So, mm-hmm. I was just like, all right, I'm like, let's see what else, this has for, like, with this, this thing called life. Let's see what else it has for me. Mm-hmm. And, not miss the now, like you were saying, it's like, actually take it in, like, actually go to the Grand Canyon and, I don't know, remember it, and not just take a picture of it, but it's, no, it's wild to me, like, especially, like, getting to, see the way that I'm able to take things in. Like, I've had friends before that, I was very, very much, against because of their, ideologies, and also, like, where they were in their life, like, whether or not it was their sexual orientation or, anything. I was so hell-bent, like I said, ironically, on saving them, that I forgot to be their friend.
Yeah. That's one of the things.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things I felt very much got to me when I was listening to Rhett and Link talk about it, but also I guess I've kind of come out. Like, the most I did was that Facebook post. I don't know how many people that I associate like know me from my Facebook post, or like a lot of people don't even check Facebook. So I don't like tell everyone, because I have learned it, like evangelicalism, I think I said that right, does not.
Yep, you got it.
It
you got it.
It really misses the mark, I feel like, as far as religion or what you believe about the universe, as far as you believe it as a fact, which is not what belief is.
Right.
It's a very personal issue. And to be an evangelist means everybody you meet, that's your full-time job, is figuring out what people believe, and if it's not what you believe, your job is to then get them to believe what you believe. And so now that I'm not that way, I realize how personal of an issue it is, because my spiritual journey is nowhere near over. I'm constantly learning new things and having to let parts of me die, which is really hard, because to accept new ideas is to let the part of you that believed a certain way before die off, when that part of you probably doesn't want to die. Like, it was hard to finally, after so long of really walking away from Christianity, to feel comfortable referring to myself as something other than a Christian, because I just didn't want to let go of that part of myself, because that was the part of me that had been around since I was little.
Dude, isn't that so messed up that it's like, because I've talked to a couple of my friends about it, one of which is a Christian and one of which is definitely not. And I just looked at them and I said, dude, I've been a Christian for so long, I don't know how to be anything else. You know, it's like, and it's, you know, I feel it's actually like, in a way, kind of like, dude, like, I don't want to say embarrassing, but it's kind of defeating, because, you know, you've been held back for such a long time on, you know, enjoying the things that you possibly could be. And I'm not even saying like remotely like sinful things. Like, it's more so just like, you know, being able to like have the time to be able to devote to something that you love. You know, it's like doing like, you know, this, you know, stuff like this. Like, you know, there's like, I can guarantee right now with Friday that like I would be doing a church thing.
Yeah.
Like, you know, whether like more so like when I was younger, you know, it's like I wouldn't be you know, doing the things I love, which, I mean, I did love it at that point. I don't want to come off like, you know, a pompous ass, but in the same hand, it's like, it just, I don't want to say like it freed me up, but it did. Like, I realized that, you know, how much of my life was consumed by just ministry and by everything, which I think that if you love something, you will dive into it. It's like, you know, just because I'm like, you know, my life was consumed by ministry, it's like, well, you know, your life shouldn't be consumed. Like, no, my life is consumed now in content, in making videos, in, you know, making, you know, different stuff, you know, for people to enjoy, and collaborating with, you know, people like, you know, like you get to do stuff like this and different things like that. So it's all about like where your focus is. But, you know, when I realized how much of a heavy toll that it was weighing on me, I knew I needed to step back and be like, I got to take a break. I need to assess myself. I need to think about this. And my goal was not to end up where I'm at right now, but in the same hand, it is where I ended up, you know, and, I think that I'm not going to, you know, spend this bullshit of like, you know, it's made me a better person or whatever. It's like, no, it's like people suck. Like, you know, it's like, you know, you have to work hard to be a good person, you know, but it's like, it's just, it's something that I have kind of enjoyed in a way, because I've been able to just relax, like, in a way where it's like, you know what, like, I don't need to save the world, okay? Like, I don't need to, you know, take care of these things. I don't need to worry about that. It's like, I'm just going to enjoy what I have and do what I do, you know? And that's been kind of the other side of it for me, in a sense. I mean, that could be right or wrong, but in the same hand, it's like I've really, really enjoyed it. You know, I've been able to, you know, do things I never thought I'd ever be able to do before. You know, and it's a very, very different thing, you know. So now there's Christians out there that are doing the exact same thing that I'm doing while maintaining ministry, and I give them full props. I have no idea how they have the stamina, but it's like, hey, more power to you. So, but yeah, it's very, very interesting. You know, it's just wild, man.
What got you interested or kind of inspired you? You can use this with TikTok as well as originally, but what inspired you to start creating content for the internet?
Well, I mean, we've talked about it a lot, but I mean, ministry, man, like that's where it stemmed from. I was so excited to have the ability to share my thoughts on what I thought about scripture and everything, with an audience. Because originally, like I said, it was to convert atheists and because I thought, I was saving the world. But in the same hand, I started to get creative and I started to have fun. And that's when I really, really started to enjoy what I was doing. It was so cool, like getting to interact with people that, genuinely loved, my content and, like people like you. And then I had a couple of other, random, like some people from like, I think like Alaska or like some other like place, like it was like completely off the beaten path. But, it was so wild because, getting to do that, kind of opened up, my mind to that. Okay, so I don't need to be like, Tobuscus. I don't need to be like the Vlog Brothers. Like I can literally do my own thing. Like I'm Kyle. Like I'm like, this is my thing. Like this is going to be, something that I'm going to enjoy doing and not something that I, have to do. It's something I choose to do. And that's kind of when it started to change, man. That's really when when I started posting my college vlogs, which I don't know if you remember that at all, but when I was going to Word of Life Bible Institute in New York, I filmed pretty much my entire endeavor up there while I was there and did it like episodically. And that was kind of the last blockade that I broke through because I was doing like videos every day. I was loving it, man. I would record everything. All my friends were into it. Like we had a system down for it, and it makes me mad that I got rid of all those videos. I think I have a friend who still has all of them, so that could be fun. I might cringe at them now. I don't know, but it's been so long. But yeah, like that really was kind of the main reason why I wanted to do it was that, number one, I've always wanted to make movies. My goal is to eventually find a way to make a feature film. But in the same hand, I knew that I had the ability to take the content that I wanted to make and I had a medium to be able to show it on. It's like I had something that I was able to, share with everybody. And that's really what inspired me with that, was because YouTube was like nothing like that had ever really been done before. As far as there had been like places like, Reddit, Newgrounds, and like, different stuff that, you could post stuff on, but this was different. Like you could record yourself in your office and post it and people watched it and they listened to you. It was such a different thing. And I really, really, really liked that. So yeah, I guess in that long roundabout way, ministry, that's what made me do it.
Yeah.
So
how did it evolve into, like the kind of silly like TikTok videos? Like where did you get inspiration, or where do you get your ideas for videos like that?
Well, I've talked about it before in some of the streams, which it's mainly on TikTok, so they're not saved anywhere. So I'll be bringing out some information here, but a lot of people were convinced that the warehouse is actually haunted. It is. But there's nothing really going on. And I know that kind of sounds like it's a contradiction, but all of the bosses and stuff that I've worked with before that either would open the building, like, whenever, before everybody would show up and everything, they heard footsteps. There's a light that flickers in one of the aisles that no matter how many times they've replaced the wiring in the bulb, it still flickers. Still does to this day, and it's really scary, especially when I go over there by myself and see it. Because I'm in the warehouse by myself 90% of the time. So it's, every creaking, like, I don't know, moan of everything that's around me, I'm always like, is that a demon? What's happening? So,
yeah.
Yeah, it's just, it's really, this all started because I found a broken light bulb in one of the aisles and no one had been at the warehouse for like a year. This fluorescent light bulb was shattered. And I remember looking at it, and I can't remember why I was at this portion of the warehouse, because it's like where like we used to like pick orders. So like it's not even in the studio. So I was over there for whatever reason. And I looked at it and it genuinely scared me. So I made my very first warehouse TikTok. And I just was like, I said something to the effect of, I'm like, working in an abandoned warehouse isn't so bad except for one minor problem. That light bulb is broken. What was it? That light bulb was broken. No one's been over here in a long time, and I'm here by myself. Thanks a lot, Satan. So it's like that's what started everything, and people loved it. So I made another one with a buddy of mine who I used to work with, and he came over to the warehouse and just slammed on the aisles. And was like, bam, bam, like I was like, all right, 1 for yes, 2 for no. Are you in fact a demon? Bam. Oh, Jesus. Okay. So it was that kind of idea of that quick, profane, intense humor. Like I love that stuff where it's, somebody spouts off a one-liner that's so hilarious, but then they move on from it super quickly and they go to something else and you're like, wait, no, I'm still laughing about that.
Right,
hold
right.
on. So I love that type of comedy, and that's kind of the chaotic comedy and like how I am with like the ADHD nature of my normal being. I just basically dialed it up to 11 and threw demons into it. Like that's pretty much all that changed. Before then, the TikToks I made, I would just capture funny moments, or me and my buddy Luke, who's on TikTok as well, him and I would just make funny videos. Like we would come up with funny sketch ideas and like stuff. It's like, okay, so what would make us laugh? And that's what we would do. And then when Bob the Demon took off, dude, it was a whole different ball game. Like I felt so bad because my friend showed me this app, and he had been on it for like a year, and I think he had something like 1,200 followers or something, not even. And I was on it for like a week, and I already had like 5K, and I felt so terrible. Because I didn't even mean to. It was I just posted this video, and I think he messaged me, and I want to say he said, and I quote, "How in the hell do you have 5,000 followers?" And I had avoided talking to him about it. Like I was like, oh no, like no, everything's fine. No, views are super low. It's terrible. And the demon knocking of I almost said Vine, demon knocking TikTok, that one actually went viral. That was as far as TikTok is concerned. I don't want to give a wrong thing, but right. He said that he found that sound on somebody else's video. And when he looked at where the sound originated, it was me. And that's how he figured out everything. And he's like, wait, so you have 5,000? Oh my God. So it was this, interesting thing. But it was mind blowing to me. Why are you crawling on the table? My cat's trying to come over here. For anybody that's watching, this is Piper, and she's an asshole.
So I want to ask you throughout all your video experiences. That was a weird way to put it, I guess. All of your kind of content creating experiences. What has been your best experience, including TikTok or coming back to YouTube, and what has been your worst or most challenging experience?
The best experience I think I've ever had is actually at my full-time job. Getting the opportunity to, number one, do what I love for a living is something that I can never trade and or ever repay the person that got me my job. Like I literally make videos for a living, and I love it. I love my job. But what I will say, a heightened moment for me, I'm not going to reveal where I work, but essentially I'm going to try to allude to some things, and I think you'll understand. But so essentially there was a big event that I had to make video content for. And there was a room of about 2,500 people that were there that were watching these huge, huge screens that my video was about to be on. And it was consistently throughout the night, because it was kind of like an award ceremony kind of a thing. Like a lot of companies do that, where they'll like show like the recognition of like everybody that's, works with the company for the year. And I saw this video pop up, and it was heavy. It's got some, industrial, like heavy guitar tracks in the back, and it's super like chaotic, but it's, people that are a part of the company get it because they know what's happening. They know the production of what we make, all that stuff. And I had this guy get up from his dinner table. He was in a 3-piece suit, and he was one of our employees that I had never really talked to before. And I was behind the sound booth with my boss. And this guy ran up to the booth, and he grabbed me by the shoulder and pulled me down, and he shook my hand, and he just looked at me and said, "Fuck yes, fuck yes. And he just ran back and like never saw him again. I have no idea who this person is, like whatever, but it was being able to know for a fact that it's like, I did it. Like I accomplished something, like, you know, that was really, really cool. And, you know, it's like, I talk down on Christianity or whatever, but, my good friend Adam and JP, they were both my pastors that actually let me work with them part-time. And it was so cool to actually like get to that point to like, I learned how to work with a client with them and then get to where I'm at now. So it's like, it's been really, really, really awesome. That they deserve that recognition. I want to be sure they got that there. But, so yeah, that was wild. The worst experience I've ever had, making stuff had to be Morbid, dude. Morbid was absolutely horrible. There was the only good thing that we got out of that movie was the intro and the outro of that movie. The opening credits and the ending credits. I love them. I love those opening credits. I love the ending or the ending credits, but everything else is just dog shit. Like it was like from the production to the final product. I was just not happy with it. So, some specifics, for instance, I don't know if you're how did you watch the whole thing of Morbid? Because I don't know if
I did,
like,
back when it came out, so it's
it.
been a long time, but I did see all of it.
Okay. So there were a lot of scenes that were outside. And so for instance, one of my friends, Andy, who was helping us out making that, he played Tom. Who got killed in the movie, and like it was like this whole thing, and he came back at the end. It was weird. So we shot at the junkyard where everything was happening, and the first night we shot his side of everything, it was, I think, like 50 degrees, 60 degrees outside. And when we went out again the next night, because I don't know how Texas weather is, but Ohio weather, we literally just had all 4 seasons in like the past 2 days happen. Yeah. Like it actually, yeah. So it was -2 the next day. And we had to make sure he was wearing the same clothes as what he was wearing because it was consistency. You know, the only thing we couldn't change, like it was like, yeah, it's like it's continuity, but now I can see your fucking breath. But we actually almost had to take him to the hospital. He almost had like hypothermia. Like it was really, really bad. He was like convulsing, and he had this fake blood on him, so it made him even colder. I got a metal shard stuck in my hand at one point because I had to do this maneuver where I threw myself off of the ground, and I was trying to make it like I dropped the camera. So I had one of my friends holding the camera, and he was going to drop it at the same moment that I did like this mega push-up off the ground. And I was just going to fall on the ground. I ended up not even using the shot, and I like lacerated my hand from it. It's, oh my God, it's horrible. My buddy Sammy ended up getting damn near broke their nose running down a flight of steps because they were into character, and that's what they bring to the table, is that when they're in, and their face met with a board that was in this like attic stairwell. And like my brother even told us, hey, be careful running down these steps. You're in my house. I know this better than you. You will hit your nose and break it. And it almost happened. Like it was, everybody somehow on that set got hurt. Like it was just
wasn't it Mark Webb who like stepped in fire during the My Chemical Romance music video?
I don't know the director's name, but it was, I think it was actually, you and I actually talked about that a while ago. Or it was like eons ago. But he was so determined. He was determined to get the last shot of Gerard Way singing the last line of Famous Last Words, that his foot was in one of the pyro like igniters or whatever that, or was close to it, that had caught fire, and it was not planned, and he refused to move. He's like, we have to get this last shot, and it's like, number one, I don't mean to say it like this. It's like, that's just a music video. It wasn't even a feature film, and this guy was so determined. Like, God, I wish I had that much of that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, man, it's wild, but yeah, it's those will probably be the best and the worst moments. I mean, I have a lot of other like kind of like in between moments, but those were definitely the two things that, you know, the most rewarding and the most defeating. But in the same hand too, is that, you know, being an artist and dealing with, you know, the things that I have, and making the mistakes that I have, like when you like get short with somebody on set and like you yell at them, or if you don't stand up for like what for a fact that you need to have happen for a story, it's like you learn very quickly how to navigate tough situations, and you're like this, and so that's really what kind of set the bar for me to understand, like, okay, so this is, making a film is never going to go perfectly, but you have to make your end result is going to make everyone think that it did. Mm-hmm. And it's that whole idea where it's like, film is just, it's an illusion, man. It's, it's what you're David Copperfield. You're about to show them that there are, women being cut in half, but they're really not.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it, and that's essentially what film is, man. And that's why I love it. It's a beautiful art form, and I'm stoked about it. So it's really cool.
All right, so
I plan on making videos until I'm 90.
Oh, so. Sorry, you're what? What'd you say?
I'm probably going to make videos until I'm 90. I'm going to be like Tarantino. So, just like if he's working in his walker, I guess I'll do the same thing,
go
so.
Ahead. I can't wait, man.
Yep. So.
My last question to you, my kind of closing question would be, so you were someone like me who went for a long time, and I remember you saying how it I think I already mentioned this in this exact podcast, but it felt like, we're kind of schizophrenic for a minute when we're trying to kind of, like Mike Birbiglia said at the beginning of being a comedian, you kind of have to be delusional for a while, even though all this shit's going on and you're having a horrible go of it. You have to tell yourself it's going pretty well, because if you didn't, you'd never be able to get on stage again or to make another video.
Right.
And it took a long time, and you eventually came back, and you have a following now. Like, you don't have, millions and millions of subscribers, but you have a following. Like, every time I see your videos, I'm like so excited and happy. Like, I'll scroll through the comments. You have all these people like talking about it and like really looking forward to what you're making. So as someone who has, I don't want to, overinflate your ego or anything, but as someone who has, made it there to get a following, what would your advice be to the people who are out there? There's freaking millions of people on YouTube every day just pumping out all this content and seeing like no results. What would your words of wisdom be to the people trying to get famous on YouTube or on TikTok?
Well, I mean, I definitely haven't figured out how to get famous. I mean, I'll definitely say that, but it's a lot of people will perceive it that way, and it's not necessarily wrong, but because, I mean, for all I know, I mean, like, because TikTok, it says that I have 240,000 followers. When you think about how many people that is, like, I've always tried to think of it, it's like, okay, so how is that enough people to fill up the Gund Arena? Is that enough people to, is that like a small city? Is that a large city? It's like think about like the size ratio of that. Mm-hmm. And it's I kind of do this as almost kind of like a tale of woe at first, mm-hmm. because just with that 240,000 people, dude, I've been very, very fortunate that I have been very safe while doing that, but there's been a couple of times that it's actually gotten kind of weird, and it's like there's people that are like, I love you, you're the best thing ever, I'm your biggest fan. It's like, it's this, it's that, it's like, it happens. It's creepy, it's weird. So that's kind of the first thing to preface. Like, it's like, just be prepared for that. Like, there's going to be somebody out there that's going to be really into you, and you're not going to understand why, but you can't control it, So it's like that, like no matter who you are. But as far as getting an audience, originality, man. Originality, that is the number one thing. People go onto TikTok and they try so hard to dance and be cute and get these movie quotes right, and like, to like, say these like different, famous like things like, okay, what was it, hit or miss, I guess you never miss, like it's that whole like, thing, like that was a huge thing on TikTok for such a long time, and if you've never heard it, be happy. But it's just, it is mind-numbing to me, the people that try so hard just to try to get an audience. Like, it's like they're essentially looking for that attention, which, I mean, yeah, we all are. Like, that's the whole point. Like, we want views, mm-hmm. but they're not being creative in the way that they're doing it. If you can be creative and do something that makes them go, whoa, That's interesting. Like, I kind of have the mentality of what Kevin Smith has towards the Russell brothers about Endgame, is that he cried when he was doing his review of the movie, or rather, it's he describes every single detail of what happened in the movie and just tells you what happened, which, I mean, that's a review for Kevin Smith. But he said, he's like, dude, he's like, you can make fun of me for crying, but he said, you know what? He's like, I will pay anybody to make me feel something in this life. He's like, for someone to make me want to watch something, or for someone to make me realize something about myself. And I'm not saying my TikToks are that in depth, but that's what I go to with my videos. I try to do stuff that is off the wall, that you probably have not really heard before. Like, who else has heard somebody yell at a demon, "You keep it up, I'm gonna pray for you"? Like, who? Like, that's how my ADHD mind works. So I think that a lot of that has that to help. But that's what I've told everybody, man, is originality. Come up with something that is particular to you. Because number one, it's a semi-contradiction, but it's one of those things where it's like, there is no such thing as originality anymore. Everything has been done. But with that, the way originality is created is that you take your own spin and you interlock them. That's how you essentially get an audience. Because as long as it gets noticed, people are going to want to know what else you're going to make. And that is, I mean, it may be a fraction of the people that have followed me from TikTok, but it's still 11,000 people that want to watch me. And it's like, that's still like, that gets to me sometimes. Like, when I post a video and it's like, God, like, people are getting this in their notifications. They're getting this in their, their emails that I'm posting stuff. Like, out of nowhere, the 911 call video that I did off of Reddit is now like blowing up. It's up to like 20,000 views, and it was originally at like 13 a couple months ago. Like, it has
that's the scary story thing.
Exponentially. Yeah, it was one of the scary stories. But the reason I say that is that I just did what I did, man. Like, some people hate that video. They're like, dude, this is dumb. This is not even a real 911 call. And there's other people that are like, dude, I couldn't even watch the video. I had to scroll down to the comments. So it's you get both sides of the perspective. You are going to be loved and you are going to be hated. It's inevitable. You, like, both of them will happen. And it's a matter of staying true to yourself and making sure that you are creating content that you like. Do not create content to make money. That's like that's the other thing. Sorry, that was kind of a molded together. So let me give that to you.
No, you're good. You're good.
Huh. Do not make content to make money. I'm stuck in that, dude. Like, trust me, I have debt like everybody else. I have debt like everybody else. I want to be successful. It's that idea of that I want to be able to see what I've created be profitable. But if you go into the YouTube / TikTok, or even, I don't know, like Instagram, Facebook viral like thing, and with the intention to make money, you will hate your life. Because you're going to be like, no, it's kind of the equivalent of like, coming home and telling your wife, honey, the band is going places, I promise. It's like, but it's just, dude, there's a lot to learn from it. I could write a book with all the stuff that I've learned, but what I would say is that if I could narrow it down to anything, is originality. Just be as original as possible. Do something you love doing, and don't be dull as hell. Like, make sure that you are energetic. Make sure that you are quick. Make sure that you get to the point. Don't spend 10 minutes explaining why you're about to react to this video or whatever. Click play and react to the damn video. Like, that's like, that's a lot of what content creators will do, is that they focus on too much about explaining themselves that they miss out on the content itself.
Well, and again,
that's
it's
something
like,
that, like, 'cause
it's going back to that quote, which is, you need to be able to be a fool. You have to be willing to be a fool to eventually become a master. It's like, you're gonna have to throw yourself out there, and you know what? The first ones you make might be shit. Like, that's probably they will be bad because you've never done it before. Like, what are the chances you're going to just nail it the first time? But you're going to slowly figure out, okay, people respond better when I do this, or it's I am better at doing this thing, or I'm better at reacting to these kind. It's just like, slowly you're gonna find the grooves that you fit into. And eventually, over time, it's going to get better if you just kind of trust the process. I didn't mean to step on what you were saying, but that was kind of
my
experience.
No. No, that's completely up to that, or up to where I'm talking about. Man, not up to, but it's been a long week. But it's
Yeah.
no, it completely coincides, man, because that's why I referenced Mick Gordon earlier, because this guy he's a younger guy that plays super heavy guitars and makes heavy industrial music that you kill demons to. You probably don't look at him and think he is a revolutionary man. It's like, no, he writes violent music. It's like, that's what people think. But his mentality on this, and it coincides with this, man. It's like, I love it. It's like a beautiful like puzzle like this put together. He basically said that the way that he was able to make the music in Doom was that he changed his process so his outcome would change. Mm-hmm. He's like, if you change your process, you will absolutely change your outcome. It was the short and sweet of it was that essentially it was that they told him originally they wanted no guitars whatsoever, which that now if you listen to Doom music, it's heavy ass guitars. But he created a new type of instrument that created industrial music and found a way to make 4 chains of pedals create this new like insanely awesome ring modulation setup. Had he just gone in without that limitation of no guitars, he never would have created that new, I guess, like quote unquote genre. And it's like his process changed, and that's why the music for Doom works so well. Was that he was put into a box, and it was, okay, you don't have anything else. Take this and be creative. Mm-hmm. And when he did that, and it finally worked, it went, okay, now you can do whatever you want with this new thing that you just created. Mm-hmm. And it completely set the bar, dude. Like, that's the brief they gave him. I think it said, we want you to make music that nobody has heard before. It has to fit the game perfectly and be instantly loved by millions of fans. Mm-hmm. Like, that's I don't want that brief. Like, I don't want to have that job. Right. But it's, but he did it. And it's, if you're struggling to come up with new content, if you're struggling to, essentially like come up with a new idea, not even for a video, but just like what would be fun, like what would I enjoy, change your process. Like, as dumb as it sounds, like if you wake up every morning at 7:30, wake up every morning at 7:20, like change it up. Like, it's like, you will find different ways to go about it. And that's really what it comes down to, man. Like, change your process, change your outcome, and be original. That's really what I would say, and have fun with it.
Yeah.
So all that being said, so, there's a lot to it, but I'm a fountain of information. So, but
yeah, no, that's pretty good.
But,
that was a really good answer. Yeah, I think that's pretty much the bulk of the questions that we went through.
Oh yeah, man.
Do you have any parting wisdom or any parting words?
I mean, nothing other than keep your nose clean and wash your damn hands. That's pretty much it.
Yeah,
so like,
yeah.
No, no, man. It's one of those things where, just if I could say anything, it would just be like, keep creating. And that's for you, and that's for anybody else that's listening to this, is that if you're on this platform and if you're watching this on YouTube, and first off, I always say this on my podcast, but it's like, if you've made it this far into the video, number one, thank you. But it's like, it's just, this is especially a time like now, and especially with how the world is changing and how, just technology is evolving to accommodate the changes that's happening. Like, this is going to become the main new medium, like, from what I believe is going to be revolutionary in a way that it's never been revolutionary before. And it's one of those things where it's like, guys, like, this is the time to create content. This is the time to take advantage of that. You have tons of time. You have the ability to do it. Just if you're like, man, it's like, I've always wanted to start a YouTube channel. It's like, try it. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? You won't get any views. Okay, so do 30 million other people. Be a part of that, minority. See if you can do it.
Yeah.
And take a chance. So
yeah, it's also just a cool thing to be a part of, whether you're doing it and getting a ton of views or not. Like, just your family and friends are watching. It's still a cool thing to be like, yeah, I'm a YouTuber. I make YouTube videos, or like, I'm on TikTok. It's just a fun community to be a part of.
It is, and it's especially like, with the scary stories and stuff that I've done, that's been a lot of fun. Especially, this is the last thing I'll say, is that I think that what has been really cool for me was when I did my mom's story. Her story takes place over about 6 years, and it is there was a reason why I put a disclaimer at the beginning of it, because I said, look, I'm like, this is going to sound crazy, but I swear to you that everything in this is 100% true. That like, this is how things happen. This is that. And, the day that I uploaded it, now, first and foremost, my mom actually sat on this couch with my laptop when I still had it. It's currently at a friend's place, but so otherwise I would have used that tonight. No, she sat down here and typed out her story for the very first time. And I made it into the video, and when she called me, she cried. Like, she was like, you don't understand, she's like, I was sitting on so much with that story that I realized I never really had purged and gotten out.
What is that one called?
And that one is called Darren. It's a Darren. That is about a person that my mom interacted with that had someone who passed away that came back in a very, very, very aggressive way. And it was not good. It was very, that was, if there's ever anything demonic, that was definitely something very evil that was going on at that point. And that's kind of why I held off on even telling it for such a long time, because it is so crazy. One of the things she talked about actually happened like in one of the streets on broad daylight in our hometown, like here, like in our hometown. And it was really kind of outlandish, and I was like, all right, I'm going to see what people think. And it did quite well. And, it was cool because it gave her the ability to purge that. Like, she had been hanging on to all of that for so long. And when she finally had it brought out into the open, it was kind of this moment of like, she felt like she could finally move on. Like, it's like she had moved on, but it was, she never really had therapeutically worked through it. And, to finally go back to it and go, this was bad, but I've overcome this now. It was just something scary she talked about before, but now it was, hey, this was scary and I overcame it, and this is how. So it was a very interesting one. If you've not seen it, I definitely suggest it. It's I'm not trying to plug myself, but it's
no, absolutely, yeah.
Have you understand what it's about. But yeah, everything from like that. My wife has done a story. Me and my brother have had aggressive things that have happened to us when we were kids, and different stuff like that. Which if you want to do another live stream, we can either talk about stuff like that if you're curious about that. But
yeah, this definitely sounds like a rich subject. I would love to do another one.
Yeah, hey, if this Corona stuff keeps up, man, we can keep doing this.
We'll
so we're gonna have
world.
Nothing but time, So,
well, yeah, man.
But hey, man, I appreciate you letting me come on here and getting to just chat with you and getting to share everything that we have. It's been really cool. I love stuff like this, dude. This shit gets me excited. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad to collaborate with you after so long of our drought of collaboration. We finally reopened this
right
this vein together. So yeah, glad.
We just had to get facial hair and pay taxes for it to happen. So it's like,
well, I am. I'm super glad to have you on. I'm glad we got to flesh some stuff out. I think it was a good episode, and yeah, thank you so much. We'll see you later, man.
All right, brother. Thanks a lot, brother. Appreciate it, man.